annual read-in of the Art Center. And this came about because we were trying to find something that would sort of celebrate the start of a new exhibit without being able to do a reception. And for obvious reasons, we cannot do a reception in person. And a reception is so different from a Zoom meeting. The flow of it all is entirely different. So for some reason, I came up with the idea of let's do a reading of writers, because the theme of our exhibit, Home Sweet Home, I felt that so many of you writers would have something to say about that. I could totally see that. I can always see what other people should be doing, so be careful for that. I'm very excited about this format. I hope it's new. I hope, well, it is for us. I hope it's entertaining. I hope it is enlightening. I hope it will add to the visual art that we have in the gallery. And because of that, I'm going to set my little timer so that we won't be talking deep into the night. The Home Sweet Home exhibit is our winter holiday show. And in the last couple of years, we've been trying to find a theme that would work really well with that holiday feel without being a Christmas gift show straight out, although we've done those in the past too. And the exhibition committee and I had worked really hard to find a good theme, but I think I have to give Michelle Griffin Campione, one of our staff members, the credit of coming up with this theme, because she wanted to highlight a number of birdhouses that Brian Egan made for us. And Brian, on his turn, invited a number of artists to decorate those birdhouses, as he has done in the past as a fundraiser for the Art Center. And it combines all kinds of different things, the love of nature, birders, and making art really well. And Michelle wanted to highlight these things. And then lo and behold, we also had a dollhouse that was donated to us to Town and Country, and Town and Country supports this show financially. So thank you to them. And the birdhouses and the dollhouse are online, and you can partly bid on them or buy raffle tickets. Correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle. And so that is kind of a short, fun fundraiser that hooked in that Home Sweet Home. Now, Home Sweet Home is not just a Christmas trees and warm klog wine and cookies and all that kind of stuff, of that holiday stuff. But in this year, in the Annus Horribilis of Speaking with the Queen of England 2020, it is also about what did the pandemic, what did COVID-19 and its restrictions do for us? Is home still so nice, or has it become a prison? And then when we were halfway, the fires became an issue, and how did we deal with that? To my delight, it is a very warm and cheerful and fun show. I'm going to turn my screen for one time and hope that you can get an overview of this. I'm not sure. And I would encourage you to come and really see it. I thought it was so encouraging in these, dark times, because that's what they are to a certain extent. We have such a cheerful show. Collectively, apparently, we are still all very hopeful. And I thought that was a very positive thing. I'm not saying that it's all flowers and sunshine. There are some darker sides. I mentioned the pandemic. Some people alluded to that. And there were the fires. The Holiday Farm fire shows a piece where an entire house was obliterated. And homelessness, which is sort of the opposite of the coziness of home. I'm glad to see you all show up here. I think this is really exciting. I don't know if you feel that way. Maybe it is because I'm sitting here in the gallery at the Art Center with a beautiful piece by Bobby Jensen, a vase of flowers, and a wonderful embroidery by Peggy Sharrow of her door and flowers. And then something by Nancy Eng, an artist that I'm totally not familiar with, from Salem. So to be here, it's just very exciting. And I hope that you have an opportunity to come and look. We are no longer extreme in Benton County, so we are open Thursday through Saturday afternoons from noon to 5. 6 people at a time from one household. And masks and sanitizing and all that, you all know the drill. I'm telling you, it's going to be worth your afternoon. If you cannot make it, or if you do not feel that comfortable with potentially other people walking in, you can email me, and I have set aside, or the Art Center has set aside, Wednesday afternoon to make an appointment. And I'd be happy to let you in just by yourself. So without further ado, I would really like to invite the first writer to read their work. And I don't see, Naomi, are you still?
Hello. Yes.
I would like you to start because I know you have to go away. And so how I foresee this going is I call the person, that person reads and then says, thank you, or something of that nature at the end. And then I know to call the next one. So Naomi,
Okay.
you're right.
All right. Thank you. My poem's called I Like Cozy. We're all just walking each other home. My home is smaller than I hoped. Only when I think a bigger house would be better. I stop myself when I want more and relish in the fact that I have so much. We don't really know what happens in big houses. I like cozy, hearing everything that happens in my house from my bed or my desk, listening to the sounds of learning and giggling, meowing, the refrigerator door squeaking open, the tea kettle singing, the dryer frolicking with clothes. I have the privilege to turn on the light when it's dark, or I can remain in the dark and close my eyes, feeling safe and secure. I have everything I need in my home right now. Someday I will need your help. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I liked frolicking clothes in a dryer. Yay. I don't see Melissa Rose. So I'd like to move on to Judy Juntunen. I think you have multiple writings. Is that correct?
No, just one.
Okay.
The year that Santa came to Castle Oaks. Judy, How's Santa going to get down the chimney? Asked my 6-year-old brother. Our Spanish-style home had a flat roof, a perfect place for Santa to land. But our chimney had a rounded cover over it, and Robin worried that Santa wouldn't be able to fit in the small opening. I don't know, Robin, but I'm sure he'll figure out something. At 9, I wasn't really worried because I was beginning to wonder if there really was a Santa, but Robin was a believer. My dad named our home Castle.
Judy, you got, can you go back to my daddy called our house?
Yes, okay. I hope this doesn't happen again. My dad named our home Castle Oaks because it was in the midst of a forest of oak trees on top of a hill north of Corvallis. Our driveway wound through the trees up to the house, perfect for sledding. As Christmas Day approached, Robin asked, "Do you think it will snow?" "I don't think so," I replied. "It almost never snows in Corvallis." Still, we were hopeful. It could happen. On Christmas Eve, Robin was the first to notice. "It's snowing."
She came back pretty quickly last time, so let's see if that is happening again. Are you there, Judy? Oh, now we will not know how this ends. I am so sorry. But, oh, Judy, you're back.
So why don't you put me at the end? I really don't know why this happens.
Technology.
And then if there's time, finish.
I don't know either. Well, the next one on the list is Scott Ross, who's sending us just absolutely gorgeous little, how would you call it? Chapbooks, not chapbooks, but you're muted. Scott, you have to unmute yourself.
There we go. Is that good?
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I've been sending some zines I've been doing during quarantine, which I call quarantines, to pass the time. And this is I grew up in Los Gatos, California, and this is a trip I made down there, a poem coming from that trip going back home. And last year I was in Montana doing an MFA in Japanese poetry. So it's really short. So here you go. In the town where I grew up, the hills, the streets, my elementary school, here in my hometown, an adult, I long for home. Thank you.
Thank you. Short but powerful. Next one would be Alan. Alan, can you unmute yourself? Yes, there you go. And read your words.
Yes, sorry for the technical problems here, but it's good that we're all patient with the limitations.
It's a virtue.
So one I'd like to read that I submitted is called Domestic Temple. When we moved to Oregon 40 some years back, we bought a bed made of ponderosa pine, a fitting observance of landing in the great Northwest after fleeing East Coasters. Half the floor, it came with massive steps for the proverbial climb. Though no more than a double, it dominates the room, looking more like it belongs in a rugged log house in the mountains than in our modern split level in the valley. Our days begin and end here, like a mantra framing our busy lives, a daily ponderosa prayer bead. For all these years, this simple bed memory of life, our holy sanctuary, home to our tender hearts.
Oh,
Thank you.
nice.
Thank you. I can so empathize with the bed as the core of your home. And it's quite wonderful. Angelyn.
Okay, now I have 2 readings, so that's okay to do that.
Let's do one and then have some other people and then you again. How does that sound?
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, this is an excerpt from my novel called Stand a Little Out of My Sun. And the title is Theotula's Chicago House. Sophie got out of the car and stared at Theotula's shacky looking house. Chunks of sandy siding like fake multicolored bricks were buckled and peeling away here and there. Rain-rotted shingles drooped over the eaves. The small front yards of the adjoining houses had their own personality. Some were scrubby and covered with weeds. Others looked raw with patches of bare dirt and a smattering of bushes. The fact that Theotula's lawn stood out in sharp contrast fascinated Sophie. It had lush rectangular carpets of green grass on either side of the short walkway to her house. 2 times a day, she hand watered her patches of lawn with an industrial-looking hose and sprayer. The red plastic geraniums that lined both sides of her narrow cement sidewalk or walkway seemed a contradiction to Sophie, but she figured Thea made a treaty with herself and settled for a delicate balance of real and fake. Sophie stepped up the sagging front steps and knocked on the screen door. It clattered with her knock. A sing-song voice rang out, "Come in." Sophie walked in and startled when the spring-loaded door slammed behind her. "Who is it?" "It's Sophie." "I'm almost ready. Get yourself something to eat and make yourself comfortable." Sophie straightened her sleeveless plaid blouse and walked into the closet-sized kitchen to get a glass of water. Nothing has changed. The pink and gray linoleum floor tiles were cracked in places and worn thin in front of the sink. Clay pots of African violets lined the windowsill. She reached up to an open shelf for a glass. A pink rubber sprayer was attached to the end of the faucet. Next to the sink sat an old gas oven with 2 top burners that exploded in high flames whenever Theotula lit them with a wood match. The knobs and handle on the oven face reminded Sophie of a frowning old man. Instead of an electric refrigerator, she had an ice box with a big hunk of sawdust-covered ice in a high-sided metal tray. A rusted drip pan sat underneath. The centerpiece of the living area was a chipped white enamel kitchen table covered with scrubbed oilcloth. The living room lamp with its narrow yellow lampshade looked like a rocket ship ready to launch from its metal tripod base. She breathed in the bittersweet scent of burnt-up charcoal laced with frankincense from the brass censer next to the lamp. It had all the appearance of a miniature flea market, and yet it looked and smelled like a sanctuary to Sophie. She pulled her hair back and sank down on the plastic-covered burgundy couch. A thoughtful sadness came over her and she sighed. A red radio flyer wagon holding 2 cardboard boxes sat in the opposite corner. Theotula didn't have a car, so she wheeled her groceries from the high-low store in her wagon. And that's all. That's that one.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
In the exhibit, we also have a screen where some of you have sent me a way of looping your reading. And I kid you not, Angie, you're on the big screen now, and it was as if you were saying those same things, that it was in sync. It was bizarre.
Huh, interesting.
And that one is muted. Sabra, can I ask you to be the next one? You have to unmute yourself.
I was looking for the mute button. So I wrote a triptych, so I will read the first part of it, and then if there's time, read others. This was about an experience my family had this summer. Our home away from home within our home. We changed our home for a weekend last July, tired of the monotony of our lockdown days and daunted by rumors of overflowing campgrounds. I looked within our home to appease our angst. Finally, guys, I announced to my family, we're going to the cabin. Mike and Jasper both give me a sideways glance before looking at each other as if to say, do you know what she's talking about? They both know I have longed to own a cabin for most of my life. I grew up going to my grandpa's remote Alaskan cabin where the lapping lake shore soothed and the independence of fishing with my sister at the creek invigorated. We knew how to watch out for bears. My mom baked blueberry pies with the wild berries she picked. We explored the next cove over with its completely sandy bottom and abandoned cabin. We climbed high into the meat cache to watch for pirates. At night, we'd play Yahtzee, and when I needed to use the outhouse, I'd run as fast as possible, hearing my heartbeat in my ears. With all the cheering and light inside, I knew they'd never know when a bear got me. As an adult, I revered the cabin as a place to step away from chores, commitments, and all things screen. This allowed for a shift inward to elevate the essentials of a home like food, shelter, and connections with my surroundings. The cabin? Jasper asked. I have yearned for him to have a similar childhood cabin experience, and now he's 15. Will he know how to be at home in the woods? Yeah, the cabin, I said. It was a simple plan that I hoped they would be willing to follow. Thank you.
Thank you. So you mentioned that the two other pieces were part of a triptych.
Yeah.
Let's keep going then. And
Okay.
don't worry, your second piece will come too.
Okay. There was a lot of smirking as we packed our bags, prepared food, and all came to understand what going to the cabin really meant. There is no Wi-Fi or screens of any kind at the cabin. In fact, the only electricity is to power the refrigerator. There is one bathroom with a toilet and sink. All eating, sleeping, and simply being were to be done outside. And to prevent us from making this a work trip, I declared no yard work. This was a trip to forge connections with the land, to commune with animals, to let our old values settle back in with the absence of screens and routine expectations. The thing I don't get, Jasper said, is we're already confined to a small area, our yard and house, and now we're going to make that even smaller? On purpose? He simply told his friends that he'd be away from his phone for a few days, not offering an explanation. I was surprised at how willing they both were. Mike gathered his banjo, journal, and Paris, the novel. Jasper kept asking questions. Are there binoculars at the cabin? What about games? I would look at the small bookshelf in the otherwise empty dining room to see how well the cabin was stocked and answer accordingly. What if we forget something? Can we go back and get it? He has always been good-natured and willing, even when he didn't know what was coming. We can make a list, I said, so we'll be sure to remember it next time. Rolling his eyes, he loads up the bookshelf with boxes of colored pencils, pads of drawing paper, Calvin and Hobbes books, a crank-powered radio, and the board game Castle Panic. Next to it, he puts a large duffel bag of mostly clothes and a pile of climbing gear. It is a lot more than I'd allow on any other trip, but this time it is okay. On the morning we leave for the cabin, the sun is hot and the bike path stretches longer to Bald Hill than we expect. It's not far on a bike, but we end up walking over 10 miles round trip for a 2-mile walk in the woods. When we reach our cabin, our dog greets us as we find all of our packed gear just as we left it in the dining room. So we come home to our cabin. It is the same address, The same structure, yet somehow it feels different. It's easy to know what to do the first afternoon, rest in the shade after a long walkabout. Mike plays the banjo, I journal, and Jasper climbs the coastal redwood after setting up his tent near the trampoline. On the second day, none of us want to walk as far on cement, so we trek to nearby Cloverland Park. We throw a frisbee and eat carrots, gorp, and quirks, bite-sized cucumbers. The park is full of people and surrounded by houses and streets. I am starting to feel the limitations of our overly urban cabin. It is easiest to be in our yard by day, but when the stars come out and we long to be horizontal to watch them brighten and the redwood scales fade to silhouettes, as well as hope for the glimpse of a bat, then the surrounding whine emanating from Fred Meyer's dominates my senses. It is an old question of what makes a place a home, if it is internally or externally driven. After 3 mostly sleepless nights, I feel deflated. Our home away from home within our home is a nice way to shift our activities and therefore priorities, but it does little to fill me up like a quiet, expansive view or the scent of a mature forest would do. To leave the cabin and return home, we take a short neighborhood walk. It's quiet as we move through this portal of imagination. I'm curious to see how home will feel. Will we resist screens more easily? Will the slackline be as much fun? I know one thing for sure. Our home will again nourish, allowing creativity and courage to spring forth and send us in uncharted directions for feeling at home away from home. Thank you.
Thank you. That was lovely. It was really quite an adventure. You're very imaginative doing it. Donna, your turn.
All right. Thank you very much. What a pleasure this is. I have 3 short poems that are in kind of a sequence. And the first 2 I did write. I set myself a project of writing a poem every day, really starting about the beginning, actually in Poetry Month, which also sort of coincided with the beginning of the pandemic shutdown. So this first poem is entitled Obad, which, if you don't know, once I didn't know, it is basically a morning poem, Obad. It's hard to get up from heaven, I say as I rise from your arms, from sheets fragrant with funk of our mingled sleep. What? You mumble to the pillow. Then the furnaces hum, then the sandy sound of the cat casting litter bits backwards, then the silence before the news. Clean me, the fridge shouts, then the oven racks, then the garage, then all the kitchen drawers join in, gritty chorus, then the furnace filter hisses what they said, and from under the kitchen sink a moist, muffled me too emanates, and rugs send up their dusty sough. Even the roof chimes in as windows launch a smear campaign, their silent treatment loud as any crowd of voices. All these almost, but not quite, drown out my protest that I'll tend them all and will, but now I'm too busy all day with wiping down boxes brought by UPS and washing hands, then washing them again. And the third poem is entitled A House Blessing, and it actually was written a number of years ago in honor of the new house built by my friends Fred and Leonard, who have Dancing Oaks Nursery up in Monmouth. And there was a little party to celebrate that. So this is a house blessing, and it seemed perfect for the occasion for Fred and Leonard. And for you all. May the stones, blocks, and slabs of your home always hum a warm tune. May the glass glow. May water flow freely through all the pipes. May the moss leave your roof alone, the roof delight in the rain's gray runes. May smoke rise through the flues as praise. May the room in your rooms stay warm or cool, depending. May your proud house boast of its feasts and guests. May it shelter these. And when they're gone, and again you're alone together, may it shelter your love's new dreams. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. I'm so impressed with all of you reading to a screen but coming across and giving us non-writers a way in to understand your writing better. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate that. But we're not done yet. Lill, your turn.
If there's time at the end, I have another one.
Okay.
This one is about leaving home. It's the last page of the prologue of my travel memoir called Startled by Lions in Seoul. Hello? I answered the phone. Hi, hon, boomed my husband's bass voice. A pleasant surprise. Paul rarely called home from the lab. He was a chemical engineer and newly minted, eager entrepreneur, so I always called the lab to remind him to come home and eat. How'd you like to go to Seoul, he said. What? South Korea. Going there on business for 6 months. Synthetek's big break. You and Spencer want to come along? Wow. My first and maybe only chance to live abroad, and the timing was perfect. I was still on indefinite leave from my graphic art career. Spencer was not yet tied to a school calendar and no longer trying to taste everything on the sidewalk. And I was long overdue for an adventure. Of course, I said. When? December 31st. Yikes! Moving overseas with only a month to get ready? Over Christmas? No worries, Paul said. Dr. Lee, my business associate in Seoul, will find us an apartment, and we can travel light because Seoul is hosting the Summer Olympics. What's the Olympics got to do with it? The city has to be very modern to host the Olympics, so Seoul will have everything we need. Plus, Koreans study English in school for 7 years, so it'll be a piece of cake. The cake? Well, okay then. In the days that followed, Paul prepared by working even longer hours at the lab, while I notified our friends and family, bought a guidebook and skimmed the pictures, advertised for cat-loving renters, bought, wrapped, and sent Christmas presents, got the tree, saw Santa, trimmed the tree, was Santa, dumped the tree, found cat-loving renters, scrubbed the crayon off the walls, hauled everything we wouldn't need up the ladder to the attic, crammed the essentials into 3 huge suitcases, hugged my friends farewell, and kissed my cat goodbye.
I love this, and I've read more of your Korean adventures. I would like to read them again, actually. Is the second piece also about this adventure or unrelated?
Yeah, it's from the same travel memoir, but in a different place.
Let's do that, and then we'll get back to Angie.
Okay. So this is the morning after we moved into our traditional Korean home. Paul's at the lab. I'm about to go grocery shopping because after a continental breakfast, we have no food. Two men in business suits and a young woman in a black wool coat stood on my doorstep, grinning and giggling at Spencer. They ruffled his hair, bowed to me, and the woman started talking to me in Korean. I returned their smiles and bows, wondering if they were a neighborhood welcoming committee. Hi, I said. I'm sorry, I don't speak Korean. Hi, said the woman, and resumed speaking Korean. Then they smiled and bowed, slipped off their shoes, and headed for my kitchen. Spencer trotted ahead while I followed, rifling my Blitz Korean for travelers for a neighborly phrase. I found the Korean for good morning. While I sounded out the syllables, conscientiously flipping back and forth to the pronunciation guide, the men draped their suit coats over the kitchen chairs, and the woman kept talking and smiling at me as she took all the chopsticks and utensils from the drawer under the little stove and all the dishes from the little wall cupboard, stacking them on the table as if anticipating a meal. I wished I hadn't eaten the last donut. I had nothing to offer them. The men were inspecting the now empty wall cupboard as if surprised it contained no food. I expected them to check the refrigerator next, but instead they rolled up their shirt sleeves, whipped claw hammers from their belt loops, and began to rip the cupboard off the wall. Shrieking nails drowned out my yelps. Bits of concrete wall splattered like shrapnel. Frantically, I searched my Berlitz for an appropriate phrase like, "Sorry, you have the wrong address," or "Is this a robbery?" While Spencer laughed and clapped, and the woman chattered happily at me over the din. As one man made for the door with my cupboard, the other man placed my little stove in my arms and snatched the cabinet it had been sitting on. I balanced the stove on one arm and, using my free hand and teeth, flipped my Berlitz to the emergency section. They stepped into their shoes. I found a phrase, "Stop or I'll scream." I sounded it out, flipping back and forth to the pronunciation guide. Hu, man, tu, ji, nu. I wished I knew which syllables meant stop or scream so I could emphasize them. Rule, T, E. Spencer tugged my sleeve. "They're gone, Mom." Stunned, I just stood there, motes of concrete dust adrift before my eyes. In lazy downward spirals, the dust settled on the dishes, on the kitchen table, on the suit coats draped over the kitchen chairs. Wait a minute. The men had left their suit coats. They intended to return. Hope swelled. Maybe they weren't just taking my cupboards, but replacing them. They could be coming back soon. Sure enough, I heard footsteps clicking up the stairs. Spencer ran to meet them. They padded into the kitchen, smiling and bowing, but empty-handed. The kitchen sink slid easily out from under the wall-mounted faucets, because the drain pipe was just a hose stuck down a hole in the floor. I hadn't noticed that before. Like a corpse dragged from the scene of the crime, the sink oozed a murky trail across the vinyl, through the living room and out the door. The woman grabbed the suit coats and followed it out, waving at us gaily. Spencer waved back. I might have, but my arms were full of stove. Thank you.
Thank you. I think everything fell into place at some point after that.
Oh yes, it made perfect sense.
Okay. We'll be curious to read it ourselves at some point. Angie, your second piece. Angie?
Now, I'm not muted, right?
You're good now.
Okay, hang on a second because I had my script. There it is. Can you see me okay?
Yes.
Okay. This is an excerpt from a children's chapter book called Tommy Pocket. And this part is called The Magical House. The sun streamed through billowing clouds as they walked down sidewalks and pebbly paths. Soon they were in the countryside, walking by an orchard of gnarly-looking trees in perfect rows. Their mossy branches and broad leaves sheltered the ground in dark, mysterious shade, with dots of sunlight poking through. Olivia turned to face Tommy with a wide smile on her brown face. "What a pretty bunch of trees," she said. "What are they?" "Oh, that's old Farmer Buchanan's filbert orchard." "Let's walk under them." "Okay." The very darkness and silence under the sprawling trees seemed to tingle with some secret magic. The soft earth beneath their feet smelled pungent. The two didn't speak a word, but when they came out of the orchard, Olivia's eyes shined. Soon, as if the clouds joined hands in the breeze, the sky turned a pale gray. Tommy said, smells like rain. When they turned down a path to Salamander Drive, Tommy pointed to a house on a hill that looked like it was covered in light green moss. "There's my house," he said with a proud grin. Olivia stopped and rubbed her eyes. She could see that Tommy's house was not an ordinary house. It looked alive. The porch had 2 cement steps that curved on the ends just like a smile. A brass turtle-shaped doorknob stuck out of the middle of the tall wooden door. 2 rounded windows on either side of the door looked like eyes that were ready to blink. The red brick chimney leaned a bit to one side, and the black roof shined like it had just rained. An arrow-shaped weather vane pointed straight up to the sky. It had wings on either side and spun in the direction of the breeze. They walked up the smiley steps. Olivia reached to touch the mossy siding, but it felt just like wood. "I've never seen a house like yours. It's one of a kind," said Tommy with a snap of his fingers. He opened the door and yelled, "Hi, Mom, I'm home, and I brought a friend." Olivia stepped into the hallway. The glint of sunlight shimmered on tiny pieces of broken glass stuck on the walls. Or was it broken glass? Olivia wasn't sure. Mrs. Pocket came in through the doorway and moved like she was floating on air. Olivia looked down but saw that her feet touched the floor. Mrs. Pocket's sky blue eyes sparkled behind her round glasses. Fluffy dandelion-colored hair made her face look soft. Her dark blue sweater with big green buttons looked like velvet. Olivia was sure she saw a white mouse momentarily peeking out of her sweater pocket. She and Tommy exchanged looks with raised eyebrows and smiles. And that's all. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Angie. So if any of you want to read also, but wasn't able to pre-sign up, please sign up in the chat. And I know that Judy wants to finish and Michelle wants to read. Judy, do you I'm going to ask Michelle to go first because you wanted to be the last one. So Michelle, take it away.
Thanks, Hester. What a great turnout. This will be a great tradition, and we are the first, so thank you. I have a poem and a story. I'm just going to read the poem because the story is too sad. Everyone's so happy. So, Mom, red caftan of celebration, daring to try a new recipe, B-52s to start. Daughters gather, some husbands, some not. A dear grandchild's Christmas wonderland, Grandma's Santa's friend. Adding champagne to sparkle, who would expect? With voices raised in song to celebrate the success of treatment, to celebrate engagement, a new grandchild in the spring, and a surprisingly glorious graduation in June. Who would suspect that this was the last Christmas at home?
That was a little sad too, the last Christmas at home. Sabra, did you have another piece to read?
No, I read them all.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, then we're getting close towards the end, and Judy will be our last person. But I first wanted to ask of you, did you like this? Should we do this again? What did you not like about it? What did you like about it? How can we improve on this? You don't necessarily have to tell me now, but you can send either Cynthia or me or Michelle a note with your thoughts about this and how we can use modern communication to be old-fashioned connected. Anybody wants to say something now? Once, twice?
I'll say something. I think this is really nice, and I think it would be even better to do it live.
In person?
Yeah,
Oh,
to do it in person.
Yeah, this is as close as we could get in that particular thing. But
Yeah.
it is a good thing to hold on to. This is semi-live. None of us rehearse, well, maybe you rehearsed it privately, but we didn't rehearse a lot of things, so that all kinds of things could go wrong, and some of them did. And so as to have a nice, have that connection. But you're right, Sabra, being in real life person would even be better.
Mhm.
And so our next winter holiday show, we might just do that.
We can all hope for that.
I really like the fact that it was an open mic on a theme. I love variations on a theme. So I thought that worked really well.
That's good to remember. Somehow we fell on a really good theme for this particular time too. It gave us an opportunity to address serious things, but also opportunities to be cheerful, hopeful, and joyful. And I cannot stress that joyful character of the show enough. Judy, are you ready? Are you willing?
I will try again. I honestly, I hope it doesn't happen again. So everybody cross their fingers and hope for the best.
Sending good thoughts.
Yes, right. So it snowed for Christmas Eve. After we hung our stockings, we didn't want to go to bed, but we knew Santa wouldn't come if we didn't go to bed. Christmas morning, Robin and I were up early. The snow had stopped. It was winter wonderland. Then I saw something. What was that on the driveway? I couldn't believe my eyes. There were sleigh tracks. Robin, I shouted. Santa landed on our driveway by the front door. There are sleigh tracks. I ran to the front door, opened it. There were reindeer tracks on the front porch. Santa really had come. Robin, you don't have to worry about the chimney because Santa came in the front door. All the shouting woke up Mom and Dad, who smiled when we told them Santa had come in the front door, and we showed them the sleigh and the reindeer tracks. That was the year I became a true believer in Santa. In our family, we believe in magic, and if the magic had a little help, such as Mom and Dad who decided to go sledding after Robin and I were asleep, or curious deer who wandered onto the front porch, we'll just call it serendipity.
Thank you. Thank you. That worked out. When I was a kid, I was the opposite of your little brother. I had no questions when I was singing my heart out to St. Nicholas at the coal stove. This how old I am. We had a coal stove, that it would be impossible for anything to come through that in one piece. That my belief just stepped over that, no problem. So we have somebody else who wants to read. Mary, your daughter wants to read. Mary? Mary's daughter?
Simone.
We're here.
Yes,
This is Simone.
here. Hi, I'm Simone, and my grandmother recently died of pancreatic cancer, and she was one of my favorite people, and still is. But I wrote this piece about her house, Nana's house. In Nana's house, there was a relatively old, squishy deep blue couch that has the sheen of velvet and feel of corduroy. The couch is in the living room with 2 armchairs with similar fabric. The chairs are both red, like pomegranate seeds. There is a Persian rug on the floor of almost every room. The white twinkly lights are in the dining room and bathroom. Most of the walls in the house are a soft, warm light filled with art. On the wall going downstairs to the basement, there are hand-woven bags and baskets made of natural fibers. There are objects throughout the house from Nana and Grandpa's travels to Japan, Africa, China, Mexico, and France. The room that Nana died in is an orange color, reminiscent of papayas and sunsets. Before cancer, she used to do watercolor painting in there. The last time I was in Nana's room, there was a round wooden table which held a vase of flowers, a few notebooks and pens, and several baskets with small treasures that were important to Nana. After Nana died, the house changed. It was as if a large part of the foundation had been taken away. The objects in the house were still there, but a certain sense of warmth left with her. That's it.
Thank you. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful. And I'm so pleased that you were willing to read and such a beautiful poem. We have a painting by a peer of yours. Maybe she's a little bit older, and she made the conclusion in her painting that her house is herself. And I feel that you were describing that your Nana's house was different after she was gone. And so she was a large part of that home.
Yeah, she was.
Yeah. Well, people, thank you all for joining us here at the first annual read-in. Maybe we shouldn't wait a whole year. Maybe we can make this a quarterly, or tell your friends that it was fun. Thank you all for joining us. And not only that, you joining us, all those people on Facebook that are watching us now, joining us there. And I would like to again say briefly to Town and Country, thank you for supporting an art show in a time when who knows who's going to be able to see it. So thank you very much. Have a lovely dinner. I hope to see you all to come and see the show. Now, for those of you who still want to give me a USB stick that I can add you to the screen in the exhibit, I can do that. You can do that and I can do that.
Deadline. The
What's
deadline for giving you the stick. Can we give it to you tomorrow? Do you want to wait until Monday to get it?
I'm not going, yeah, Monday is fine. There's always the mail slot in the front door.
I'm just going to open that up to everybody here on the call tonight. If this event has inspired you to create something specifically to join in the fun, put it on a memory stick and we'll add it to the flat screen.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. This was wonderful listening to everybody. I loved it.
Good, good.
I'm
Thank you.
impressed with as
I'm
always,
with you.
with the Corvallis, the creatives, the Corvallis creatives.
The creatives. See you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks,
So
Esther.
special.
Bye-bye.
Bye.